U.S. equity futures jumping after China's commerce. I got to breathe, though. Commerce Ministry said the U.S. and China have agreed to phase out the tariffs that were imposed during the trade war. Let's welcome our special guest, Tom Friedman. Can we dress like this? Do you think we can?
I think this is a great look he's
off?
got.
I know, but we could pull this off. I mean, he's a New York Times foreign affairs columnist, Pulitzer winner, author of Thank You for Being Late. Maybe that's why he gets the license to dress like that. We still need to try a little harder. Maybe
you could
for
pull up a turtleneck.
You got to switch it up, guys. You got to switch it up.
Tom, we've always known that there was an election coming, and we've always worried that political expediency would perhaps allow us to not, once we started to pursue this track, as long as we've gotten this far, shouldn't we really get some substantive things? What you're seeing now, are we giving up the possibility of really getting some real action just because we need to do it as November approaches?
You're talking about Warren's health plan, Joe, or something?
Not at all. We're going to talk about that later. China.
So
didn't we have a possibility? And you, we were referencing when you were on in the 2 Box with Steve Bannon. You were amazingly of the same mind in terms of that something needs to be done because it's a real threat. That China is a real threat. Are we doing something now, just accepting half measures to get something done, or is it possible that we get something on IP and some of the things, the egregious things we want to accomplish?
You know, I haven't seen the deal yet. You know, so it's hard to know exactly. It was never all going to be done in one fell swoop. The problems were too big, and China's too powerful. You know, I still want to see the details, Joe, but something we've talked about before. Because I was there 2 years ago and part of a dialogue on this whole issue, and I'm a hardliner on this. I believe we did have to take this on. And for 3 reasons, basically. You know, China went from poverty to middle income, I think using a 3-silo strategy. First silo was hard work, smart investments in infrastructure, smart investments in education, and delayed gratification, silo 1. Silo 2 was stealing others' intellectual property, non-reciprocal trade arrangements, non-compliance with WTO rules, and forced technology transfer. Silo 3 was the U.S. Pacific Fleet. They should have been paying for our presence there because our fleet reassured all of China's neighbors that China could dominate them economically, but not geopolitically, which was very important for their economic expansion. If we let them use that same 3-silo strategy to go from middle income to high income around AI, machine supercomputers, all these other 5G, we'd be crazy. Someone had to call the game, and it's good that Trump did it. The question now is, you know, how much can you get from them? And I go back to this dialogue I was in there a couple of years ago where a senior Chinese official, when I was pushing this hard line, said to me, Joe, Mr. Friedman, you're too late. We're too big. So you got that. That mood is there, okay? And what Trump did was, because he went so far, unlike any previous president, he got their attention, there's no question. But sitting back there is still a huge amount of sense that we don't have to give too much, you know. So I think both sides need this first stage of the deal, Joe. But what I was just in China 2 months ago, and what I heard there was there's a real worry, though, there that if they do stages 2 and 3, which would require real domestic reform by Xi Jinping, where he'd have to really take some meat out of the state-owned industries, they're worried that Trump is so unstable as a political character that if he got close to the election and he needed to juice his base, he could turn over the whole table. So I think that's really the tension there between the short term and the long term.
In your view, and I've tried to figure this out, what was Trump's initial motivation for taking on such a difficult thing? When I think of most conventional politicians as being
risk averse.
And self-interest, and something that's going to benefit their political fortunes. And I can't figure out, I can't connect the dots to where this would be helping Trump. Maybe it does with his baby. Is that why he did it, or is it? Did he know it would play with nationalist, populist sentiment and all the job losses?
Well, in a way, it cut across, because on the one hand, it would play with some standing up for America in the way previous both Republican and Democratic presidents have not done so aggressively. But it hurt his base in rural America. It certainly, took a lot of pain. I think he's, as I've listened to him and studied him, he's had a long history of this, feeling this about Japan and about China. And on this issue, I have to give him credit, Joe, that he basically said, no one else would have done this but me.
I think that might be.
And I think it's true.
And all, see, that's why I wonder, all just to be thrown away at the end because he has to do it.
Right.
Really? Is
and
that
I'm worried. I want to see the deal, and I haven't seen it yet. And so I'm going to be on the more generous side, 'cause something had to be done. He oversold what you could get, right away, I think, because it's a much harder process. But let's see what the final numbers are. Talking to business people, a lot of people are worried.
A lot of people are worried.
Particularly, Joe, in the telecom industry. Hey, what's going to happen to Huawei? Are we going to basically give Huawei a passing? Big concern about that.
But isn't the expectation that that'll have to be part of this? I mean,
I think for China, it's a huge deal. You're talking about their leading technology.
It's the ultimate pawn in the trade war.
But to me, there have always been two issues here. There's been the broader trade question, soybeans and Boeings.
Right.
And then there's Huawei. And what Huawei represents is for 30 years, we sold China what I call deep goods, software, computers, stuff that went deep into a business or a household. They sold us shallow goods.
Yep.
Clothes we wore on our back, shoes we put on our feet, solar panels we put on our homes. What Huawei represents is China is now approaching our technological peer, and they want to sell us deep stuff that goes into our sidewalks, into our walls, into our bedrooms. And what we're telling them, we don't have the shared values and trust for us to buy your deep goods. And that's why Huawei is the tip of a very big iceberg that is still going to be there no matter what happens in the short term.
So we were talking to Bill Gates yesterday, and he actually has a different view.
I've argued with him about this.
You know about his view. His view is that effectively Boeing also has software in their engines, and if we're going to sell them planes, we should be willing to accept it on the other side.
Well,
and that the software code can be corrupted both ways.
Right. Well, there is some truth to that in this sense, Andrew. When I was over in China a couple months ago, I actually Googled Huawei and cyber. You know what the first
from China?
From China. I don't remember where I was, but and you know what the first thing that comes up? Edward Snowden's testimony that the NSC had hacked Huawei, built a back door into Huawei systems so they could do two things. One, penetrate all the countries Huawei had installed their technology in, like Pakistan, and at the same time discover whether Huawei was in fact backed by the PLA, the People's Liberation Army in China. That's actually the first thing that comes up. And so I think Bill's onto something in that is we are going to be so penetrating each other. You can drive yourself crazy around this, or you can just accept that privacy is over.